Oh baby, if you are a renter who wants to turn your boring and basic kitchen into a cute and cozy vibe, then lucky for you, I got the tips. Come on, kitty, do you want to talk about how to make a small kitchen cute? Okay. Welcome to Laugh Cry DIY. I am your host, Katie, and today we are continuing my video series where I give you helpful, realistic tips to turn your rental into the home of your dreams or your mother's nightmares. And today we are going to do a deep dive into an often overlooked room, which is the kitchen. I know that oftentimes in rentals, kitchens can be sometimes less than inspired. Maybe it's small, maybe you have ugly cabinets. It doesn't matter, because today I'm gonna give you my best, realistic, budget-friendly tips to transform it, no matter what your kitchen situation is. Now, these ideas are tailored for renters, but you can apply them in any way, whatever your style, whether you are a very ambitious DIYer or a super low-key lazy girl. Now, before we dive in, I will say the big key to decorating any kitchen space is to treat it like any other room. I feel like a lot of times we look at it as a very separate functional space, but it can be just as much a part of your home as anything else if you layer in color, pattern, texture, cozy accents. So whether you're gonna make really big dramatic changes or you just wanna add a few little things, think of it through that lens, that you are decorating another room. That is how you get a layered, cozy feel and make it feel cohesive with the rest of your house. So let's dive in to the tips as well as the examples I'm gonna show you. And some of these tips are maybe more obvious, some are maybe more unexpected, but you can draw inspiration from all of them and apply them as you like. Let's get kitchen crazy. Starting with the number one offender in many kitchens, and that is cabinets. Cabinets often take up the most visual real estate in a kitchen area. Maybe you have some really plain white boring cabinets and you're a color person. Maybe you have some weird wood tone cabinets that you just don't dig. There are several things you can do to change them entirely or to make them less of an eyesore in your own mind. Starting with contact paper. If you have cabinets that are not painted wood in which the contact paper would peel off the paint, this is a really cool way to change the facade in any way you want. I've changed boring cabinets to glue. I've also seen people turn their cabinets into a faux wood. That can really warm up a space. And what's really cool is that you can actually paint contact paper any color you want. You just pre-paint the roll, as I've done on this channel. It's super, super budget friendly. And the key is to get a thicker, high quality contact paper. That way it's more sturdy. However, if that is too tedious and too overwhelming and peel and stick is stressful for you, you should do what I did, which is use fabric and liquid starch to cover your cabinets. This is also a budget-friendly solution. I used less than $100 of fabric material to turn my cabinets from a boring like taupe shade into a really fun pink. I will link that whole video below, but this is a great hack because fabric and liquid starch is really easy to remove. It's much easier to smooth out with your hands than contact paper. If any weird air pockets or anything come up, you just spray it with the liquid starch and re-smooth it and it's fine. I didn't even remove the doors from my cabinets when I did this. And I know people are concerned about wipeability, but let me tell you this, it dries as thick as a canvas. After they dried, I also sprayed them with a non-toxic fabric protector. That adds a little bit more durability. And honestly, any stain that comes on, I just wipe off with soap and water, the way you might clean normal cabinets. It's been totally fine. It's my new favorite hack. Now, if that is all also too overwhelming, you can also add a little color, a little fun detail by using washi tape, which is little Japanese masking tape. You can get it at the craft store for like $3. And you can use this in a few ways. You can add faux paneling to your doors. I love how they did that here. So simple to do, but as you can see, it's very eye-catching. Conversely, if you have open shelving or clear glass cabinet front doors, I'm a big fan of color and pattern. So I love adding a cute little wallpaper or fabric and liquid starch to the back wall. You can see here how it makes the dishes pop so much more, and I love that. Or you could wallpaper one small cabinet entirely. I love how they added this little hit of color and pattern right here. It's really tiny, but it's really cute. And if you don't have open shelving, you can also just fake it by removing your cabinet doors entirely. Sometimes you want to keep those doors on to keep things like covered and clean, but sometimes taking those doors off can actually make it feel a little bit more open and larger. Here's an example of what it might look like if you just removed the doors on the top cabinets. Sometimes this is helpful for functionality to make it easy to reach things, or to display cute things you might have. You'll also note in this picture, these are white cabinets with black trim. It is very easy to add that type of colored trim with colored washi tape. Again, it's a very small detail, but it can be really cute and low effort. Here's another example of open shelving. Again, if you are somebody who has a lot of cute vintage glassware or decorative items or collections. That said, if you like cabinet doors and you want to keep them, one simple tip, simple tweak you can make is just changing the hardware. It's so easy, but it can make a big difference, especially if you get something like this in a really beautiful finish with really cool details. This is also a really great thing to do if you already have colored cabinets, because oftentimes that hardware is really gonna pop against the colors, like this blue and gold. So it's really eye-catching, even though it's a small change. And lastly, if you want to zhuzh up your cabinets, this is a fun one and more unexpected, and that is actually just to add a fun little trim. This is very popular to do with scallop trim. You can buy these cheap little pieces, paint them any color you want, and apply them with command strips or double-sided tape. You can also add that same type of trim to the existing doors. Here's a great example of how they did that on these fluted glass cabinets. And by the way, in this same picture, you'll also notice the cute little hit of color and pattern in the wallpaper. So again, I think it's all about those details, whether you go really dramatic or really small. Even those littlest details can really make the place feel a little bit more alive, and I think that's really fun to do. Of course, if you like your cabinets or all those changes are too much to do there, one other high impact change you can make is to change your countertops. And for the record, if you are a DIY phobic person, this is way easier to do than changing your cabinets, so don't be scared. This is such a cheap, such a simple, such an efficient change to make. And again, you can totally customize it to your style. On this channel, I have used a faux marble to contact paper. It costs like 20 bucks. I've also seen people do a faux wood contact paper to make it look like a butcher block. If you are a super colorful person, something like this really fun pink is really eye-catching. And you can even go for a pattern with something like this terrazzo print, which comes in a ton of colors and also hides stains and things like that. Of course, the key to doing any contact paper is to, again, get a very thick quality vinyl. And for countertops, you wanna get something that's wipeable, so you don't wanna get a matte finish. You wanna get something that is like shiny and easy to clean. For the record, they also make a product that is meant to help you put on and position peel and stick paper. I will link that below. You spray it on, you put the paper on, you slide it into the position, and then it all dries correctly. So if you feel really overwhelmed working with peel and stick, that can be a helpful product for you. But again, I really do love this hack because it's so budget friendly, it's such a simple thing to do, and it really changes the personality of the space depending on what your style is. Now, we're gonna talk about smaller changes you can make later, but I'm gonna continue the train talking about big, high impact changes you can make that are very dramatic, specifically around changing your floors. Sometimes in a kitchen, you have really ugly laminate flooring. Sometimes it is just not your style, in which case I love using peel and stick floor tiles. I have used them many times on the channel in many different ways. In my last apartment, I did a Harlequin style black and white floor, which made the whole space feel a lot cleaner and even larger because of the pattern. I've done other black and white patterns in other kitchen makeovers to change the floor. Now, if you already have tile on your floor, you can also get tile stickers, which are really, really thin stickers that just go over existing tile. Those can be a great option. I've used them. They came up just fine. It was awesome. Now, of course, when it comes to peel and stick tiles, you do have to peel them up. It can be a huge pain in the ass to get them off, and they shouldn't be put straight over things like wood floors. So here is my best renter-friendly hack. Putting a thin sheet of vinyl down below. I did this in my own kitchen makeover. I taped down shower curtains and then I put the peel and stick tile over those. That has worked pretty well. However, if I were you and if I were doing it again, I would go to the store and I would get moisture barricade, which is really, really thin vinyl flooring sheeting that they already put down underneath real floors. Painters tape that down, then do it over, and that way it's gonna be really nice and flat and thin. You're welcome. However, if that sounds like a huge headache and way too overwhelming, let's talk about one of my other favorite ways to mask an ugly kitchen floor, and that is to simply add rugs. This is so simple, easy, budget friendly, and so often overlooked, and yet it makes the biggest difference to make the space feel really warm. Here are some great examples of this. Adding a really bold, colorful rug, especially if you have a very crisp white kitchen, adds a lot of personality and it really makes it pop. Here's another great example of adding a cool rug, especially if you add a nice silhouette. I love how this circular shape brings in some softness. And here's another great example of a simple little rug making it such a nice vignette with the small table and chairs, and making this feel much more like a living area than just a boring kitchen. And obviously, if you're getting a rug that's going in your kitchen, you want to get something that's easy to wash. I'm a big fan of a pattern so that if food or some stain gets on it, it's just not that big of a deal. It kind of blends in more. I'd also consider the color, the pattern, and again, the shape for the space. Whether you want a nice long runner or a cute little round rug or something kind of wavy and abstract. It's totally up to you and your style. But I will say, even just adding the smallest little rug, even if it's just right in front of your sink area, just adds a nice little texture and warmth that any space can benefit from. All right, moving on. Let's talk about another way to really pack personality into a space, especially if you have an all-white kitchen that's kind of like basic and simple and you don't really want to make that much of a change. Then I would say add a fun little colored backsplash. You can get renter-friendly faux tile backsplash in so many colors, so many patterns. It's totally up to you. They are very inexpensive and they are so easy to apply. For example, if you just did one simple bold color like this yellow, it really draws the eye. And I also will point out how great this looks with that yellow backsplash and a cute little rug on the ground. I love this cute little pink right here. It's very joyful. You can also add a fun little pattern like this, depending on whatever your style is. You can get little individual tile stickers that lay over, and they even make these cute little tile decals that are basically like tile tattoos. I will link these below, but I think these are such a cute option and very low effort too. Now, a lot of these faux backsplash options are made to go over existing tile if you already have it. You need to look at the manufacturer's directions. A lot of times they will say, don't put it straight on drywall. They're meant to go over tile. However, if you don't have backsplash, you can kind of fake the effect by doing a renter-friendly peel and stick wallpaper. They add nice color, they add really fun pattern, and you don't need that much to make a big impact. Of course, you want to be mindful of like water splashes or a lot of heat from a stove, but there is a lot of like waterproof vinyl peel and stick wallpaper that should be fine. So obviously use common sense, be mindful, follow manufacturer directions, but don't overlook the power of a big, beautiful backsplash or a tiny, cute one. All right, let's talk about another eyesore in kitchens, which can be difficult to deal with because you often can't move them, and that is appliances. Things like your fridge, dishwasher, stove. They can be either in your face or they can just be generally like unsightly, but if you are someone who likes a little color or pattern, there are ways to zhuzh those up, specifically by wrapping your appliances. And there are a few ways to do this. You can use peel and stick vinyl to wrap your fridge. For example, I love this pink and white checkered fridge pattern. It's so fun and cute and cheery. Here's another example of fridge wrapping. Adding a little pattern like that can be a fun little pop of personality. Or if you like color, here's a great example of this beautiful coral wrapped fridge. They also swapped out the hardware handles there, which you can actually get online. But it's not just your fridge that can benefit from a pop of color. You can also do your dishwasher. And in fact, they make these magnetic strips that are meant to just pop right onto a metallic dishwasher. And I've said this before, but if you just did your little dishwasher and then you added a few tea towels and maybe a tea kettle in that same color palette, that alone can make your kitchen look so cute. If you're interested, I will include some links below for the fridge wrap covers as well as the magnetic dishwasher covers, which again, are so simple, so budget friendly, and so low effort, but such high impact. And now let's enter the portion of the video for my lazy girls who do not want to do all of that peel and sticking or major overhauling of items. For you guys, one of the easiest things you can do to make your kitchen feel more homey and cozy and inviting is to add fun little lighting. And there are quite a few ways you can do this. So let's start with the very popular, very trending, little tiny table lamp. These types of lamps are so cute in kitchens and they can be so tiny. I love this example here with this really, really adorable tiny vintage lamp. It's practically a nightlight, but it looks so cute. Of course, if you have a really tiny kitchen and you can't afford to waste any countertop space by adding a lamp, a really cool place to put one is on top of the refrigerator. Here's a perfect example of that. This looks so cute, especially styled with the little colorful bases. On this very channel, I did a tour of my grandma's mid-century home, and she actually does this in her kitchen, but she has 2 lamps on top of her hutch. And this is especially great for people whose cabinets don't go all the way to the top. You can just tuck a little lamp up there and make the most of that vertical space. But if you don't have anywhere to put a lamp, Another great thing to do is add a simple, adorable little sconce. I'm such a fan of sconces because they add character no matter where you put them. Here's a perfect example of adding so much charm just with this little sconce on the wall. Here's another great example of a tiny sconce with this cute little pattern lampshade. And if you're a renter, they make both plug-in sconces that you can hang anywhere. They also make rechargeable bulbs. I will link those below in my renter-friendly lighting list. I use them in my own house, but you can just add any sconce to the wall anywhere and just plug those in. You don't have to hardwire it. They're also on remotes, which makes it even better. Now, when it comes to kitchen lighting, one of the most popular things to do is also to add under cabinet lighting for a little ambiance, a little mood, a little task lighting. And you can do this with plug-in LED strips, battery-powered under cabinet lighting. But I will also say something I really like is not just that under lighting, but it's up lighting on top of cabinets. Let me show you an example of this. So in this picture, you can see that they have added LED strips above the cabinets to spotlight the art and the other items up there. I think this is really cool for mood and ambiance, especially if you're in a smaller space like a studio or a more like open floor plan situation where, let's say, your living room and your kitchen are side by side and you want the ambient light from different directions. Now, switching gears to something that is probably the most unexpected, underused, and underrated thing to use in a kitchen is mirrors. You might not think that a mirror belongs in a kitchen because it can get splashed with water or food, but I will show you what a cool decor feature this can be, especially in a small kitchen where you don't have a window. A brilliant thing to do is to add a mirror right behind your sink. It creates the illusion that you're actually looking out a window. It helps you move light around the space, and it makes it feel bigger just with that placement. Here's another example of doing that right behind a sink. You can see they've also added two sconces on the side, which is very clever. Here's another really dramatic example of doing that with a really large mirror right behind the sink. And I have to show this one too, with the table and chairs tucked into the kitchen, just because it makes it feel so grand, but so cozy. And you don't even need a huge grand mirror. Just tucking in a small mirror in an unexpected place is really cool and clever. And I have to say, of all the tips we've talked about thus far, I think mirror behind sink is kind of the most brilliant one for a small space, so do with that what you will, and then send me a picture if you do. And now, in the vein of mirrors, let's talk more about the glamour and decor you can bring into a kitchen via art. Adding art to your kitchen is one of the best ways to make it feel more grand, more lived in, and more cohesive with the rest of your house. Now, of course, you can go the more traditional route and you can add art, kind of like a gallery wall. I love this kitchen where they have these paintings all over. I think it's really beautiful. Sconces can also come in handy here to help feature your art. Here's another great example of art on the wall with that little gallery lighting above it. Now, if you are, again, somebody whose cabinets don't go all the way to the top, I will say one of my favorite places to tuck art is along the top of a cabinet. Here's another great example of that. I love how they didn't just hang this art, they just simply layered it on that shelf. That's a really cool way to create a rotating gallery of art as well if you get tired of kind of looking at the same stuff. That said, if you don't have that much wall space in your kitchen and you can't put art everywhere, guys, your refrigerator can be your own little gallery wall. Look how darling this little side of the fridge is with these mini frames. And you will also note a little cute lamp on the counter as well. But when I talk about art in the kitchen, I'm not just talking about prints. This can extend to so many things. I also love this version of a gallery wall where they've also included other items such as those cutting boards. If you're a thrift or vintage person, thrifting an adorable assortment of plates, especially in different sizes, is so cute. Cookbooks can also make really cute art. I've seen framed handwritten recipes. I've seen framed food prints from cookbooks. There are so many options. I love what they did with this cute little cookbook holder. Not just putting it on the wall, but adding that cute little sconce above makes it almost feel like a little museum moment. Another common cool object to see displayed in a kitchen is mugs. They can totally be their own art. Here are some other great examples of turning mugs into a focal point. You can even turn your knives into art if you add a cool little background behind like a magnetic strip. So I really encourage you to look around your house, look around your kitchen, see what you can reimagine and throw on your walls as art. And that brings us to our last tip for today's kitchen roundup, and that is to use plants. Obviously, in a dream world, we'd all have a sun-filled kitchen where we had a little herb garden in the windowsill, but If you don't have that, that's okay. There are still a lot of other ways that you can use plants to bring more life into your kitchen. Again, if you have cabinets that don't go all the way to the ceiling, adding plants to that dead space on top of your cabinets is a brilliant use of that space. Same goes for your fridge. A pothos plant is always a good option, especially if it trails. Here's another example of why you might want to take off your cabinet doors. As you'll see here, they have open cabinets on top and they've tucked some plants in here and there. It brings so much life and it brings so much beauty. Similarly, the sides of cabinets are really, really great, especially if they're by a window. You can add hanging shelves. They have command strip shelves, and this is especially great for propagating plants. And again, it always helps to maximize vertical space. I also love this option of running a shelf above a windowsill. You can also do this above a doorway, but always adding plants up high and out of the way is a great way to incorporate them without losing any valuable counter space. Here's another simple example, and I do just want to point out in this picture, we have the layered plants, we have the layered art, we have functional objects, we have a bit of decorative lighting. So, to recap, when it comes to kitchens, think layered, color, texture, pattern, coziness, ambiance. These are the mystical, magical ingredients you use to create a beautiful home, and you can use them to create a beautiful kitchen too. So if you found this video helpful, please throw me a like, consider subscribing. I'm sure you guys have even more tips that I didn't cover in this episode. Please feel free to share them below. If you like DIYs, decor inspiration, feel free to sign up for my newsletter below. I send out a monthly little roundup. It's very fun, it's very cute. That said, I am not done talking about kitchens on this channel. In the next episode, we are going to cover all of the cute and functional ways to maximize storage in a small space, which I know you guys need just as much. So until then, I hope these tips help you re-envision your space, reimagine what you could do, and make your kitchen 100% cuter. All right, guys, bye.